We're hoping the rally doesn't run out of steam anytime soon. Jagdip, Cheema, Arise News.
Oh, Jagdip joins me in the studio with Yannick Naud from Sturgeon Capital. Jagdip, what do you think this will achieve for the economy? Because you pointed out in your package all the problems with the economy, but we mustn't forget it is a huge economy, isn't it?
That's right. It's ranked third largest by a global think tank report, which was issued quite recently, which was supported by the IMF. What India requires is greater development, especially in infrastructure, and that's where it's lacking at the moment.
But it has some huge companies right now, doesn't it? I mean,
That's
it has
right.
a big industrial base.
Yes, and it's not just in the commodities sector, which is quite famed for at the moment. It's also in the car construction sector, such as Tata, which is obviously got
Steel company,
yeah, and it's got quite a huge global presence abroad.
Yeah, it has indeed. But the other side of all this, of course, is the rural community in India. Now, how is that being addressed, and where does that fit into the economy?
Well, they've generally backed the ruling Congress party, which is currently in power at the moment. But Narendra Modi's BJP party doesn't usually rely on them for great support.
Sure, yeah,
and therefore foreign direct investment is something which we could see if they come into power.
What can Modi point to so far in terms of economic success that he's governed or managed?
He was head of the state of Gujarat, and he actually beat overall Indian national economic growth 11 out of the last 12 years, which is seen as a great sign of success for himself, and especially by market analysts abroad as well.
What about all the criticisms, though, should he come into power, the fact that there'd probably have to be a coalition, and that tends to dilute initiatives, doesn't it?
He certainly has a certain type of murky background, but in terms of economic success, his record is unmatched by any other of the candidates.
But what I'm saying is, would he have a strong enough government to be able to push reforms through, do you think?
Certainly. He's not reliant on rural backing, and therefore his major support is from larger centres, and therefore they've funded his campaign so far, and that should be enough to push his ambitions through.
Okay, Yannick, what's your take on this? I mean, from an investment point of view.
Yeah, I think 50% of the Sensex is owned by foreigner. It's a very good news for the country, for the economy. Having said that, the expectations are incredible. I mean, the stock market is up 17% in 3 months.
Yeah.
So if the exit poll are wrong, and in the past there have been some problem with the exit poll, or if the margin of maneuver is much smaller than what the market expect, there could be some negative news. You have to keep in mind, for example, that the monsoon could be, I think, between June and September, could disappoint, and that could create again higher food price, higher inflation. The country is growing. I think it's going to grow around 5% this year, but the inflation is still not under control.
I think investors internationally would look to India as a good example of corporate governance, though, wouldn't they? And that tends to take investment in. Yeah.
Certainly. You would argue it's the largest democracy, which has got a developing economy, which is within the BRICS nature, which is quite...
Yeah, indeed. It's an interesting combination, that, isn't it? Developing, but being the largest democracy.
Yes, it is, and it's certainly seen as a sign of success, and many emerging economies try to use the India template that they've...
But take a long time to turn around, I guess, because it's big.
Certainly. It'll take a number of years, and it might take a second term in office for Mr. Modi to get through those targets.
Yannick, let's talk about the United States, because that's the other... I mean, everything is in its favour, isn't it? Or at least equities in the United States. And to a certain extent in Europe, interest rates obviously remaining low.
Yes.
It looks like the euro debt crisis is a thing of the past. I mean, you can't be too sure about this kind of thing.
So far, yeah.
And also the United States economy growing strongly. That's what's keeping the stock market going, presumably.
Yeah, what's happened is the growth in the US is quite good. I mean, 3% or around 3%. In UK, it's okay. In Europe, it's a bit disappointing. But all in all, there's no inflationary concern. Therefore, every market participant expects the central bank to keep interest rate extremely low for a long period of time, even though the unemployment, for example, in the UK, in the US, is going down quite a lot. So therefore, for example, the 10-year government bond in the US is around 265%. It means that the borrowing rate for most of companies, most of banks, is very low, which is in fact creating quite a lot of M&A, merger and acquisition, which are funded usually by debt or share buyback. And all this factor, which is a low cost of funding plus a benign environment in terms of inflation, M&A, and share buyback, have one of the consequences that the investor have to be invested in order to get dividend, to get return. We have to see that a stock with no dividend, like technology stock, are not doing very well. I mean, the Nasdaq is not at all-time high at all. Only the large cap with a reliable cash flow are doing very, very well.
Okay, Jagdip, Yannick, thanks so much. And you stay with us, but you will talk further later in the program. Thanks so much for the moment. Now,